Brum, brum. Right, you're all going to say, who's that? Because I haven't got my blue overalls on. But anyway, the thing is, I've come to the Bugatti Trust. I thought I'd put a tie on and everything, because Mr. Conway, who was the man who actually made this happen, I've got a lot of admiration for him, because he was a very good man. And he helped me immensely. So I thought, well, if I put a tie on, show a bit of respect. And then I thought I'd come in my old Elvis, because, you know, this is what I've got it for, to come to places like this. So that is why I'm here. And you'll see as we get further involved with Angela, who runs it now. And there we are. That's why I'm here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I think this here conjures up Bugatti, really, because if you imagine being brought up in a family where your brother does that and your dad does that, they must have talked about nothing else, because, you know, they don't just happen, them things. You know, you talk about it. And then there was famous artists at the time used to call in, and they'd all be sitting there saying, well, yeah, it's very good, blah, blah, blah. And then there's young Bugatti there listening to all this. So when he decided to make a motor car, he didn't just make a motor car, he made a beautiful motor car. And it is unique. I've looked at everything in my life, and there's only one thing that's like a Bugatti, and that is a Bugatti. There ain't nothing else in my opinion. I mean, I don't like the 57s and all that, I like the 35. But it's a very clever thing, and it actually works. And when you've actually had the privilege to drive one flat out, you know, and feel that 8-cylinder engine pulling 6.2 in top, you know, I mean, it is fabulous. And you put your foot on the brake and it stops. And then when you turn the steering wheel and you look out the side and you've got that lovely aluminium wheel, there's nothing like it, in my opinion. And that was it. I couldn't wait to get behind the steering wheel, to be honest with you. And I'm bloody glad I did, really, because, you know, it's gone on and on and on. You know, I'm very impressed with all of this, but I've been impressed since the first word go, when Mr. Conway had it in his mind, really. Somewhere to keep all his stuff, because he collected a lot of stuff, including loads of copies of the original drawings, which was massive, wasn't it?
Yes.
And obviously now they've got it all sorted out now, and it's had an extension since then, hasn't it?
Well, the extension was opened just over 20 years ago, and in fact it's thanks to the extension behind us that we can really do those big annual exhibitions like the Type 35 one here with the car on loan from the National Motor Museum.
Yeah.
The Type 35 that raced at Lyon.
It's Type 35. Anybody who's into Bugattis and even decided they're going to build a replica or they're going to build a model even or whatever, you can come here and you can see how Bugatti finished his bits, really.
The third oldest surviving Bugatti engine even.
I love the Ettore
that's
Bugatti
fabulous.
signature.
Yeah.
And what year is that?
Well, that'd be really old, wouldn't it? I suppose that's 12.
1912?
Yeah.
So when Hugh Conway Sr. decided to set up the Bugatti Trust, now roughly 35 years ago,
Yeah.
he always wanted it to have educational aims and objectives. So he wanted it to be the safe place for his collection of archive documents. Obviously we've added to them over the years, so we've got the 27,000 technical drawings that we talked about earlier on, 12,000 plus photos, 1,000 of them. But use all of that and the income we generate working with the archives to work with schools and universities and young people and encourage the next generation of engineers and designers.
Well, I think really you'd have a job not to be inspired if you come here.
But we try, yes. And
I mean, you know, when you look, there's an aeroplane, that's a 16-cylinder aeroplane engine. In my experience, it's amazing how a young kid can get inspired.
We sponsor Team Bath Hydrogen, working on land speed record car.
Oh.
Yeah, watch out, 2026, who knows?
Yeah.
They got the engine running,
Oh.
spectacular. But we also do sponsor local schools. We call it a study centre and a museum. And
I can tell you my best story.
I'm sure it's
My
very
best
common to you.
story somebody bought a Bugatti in America and all the front suspension was chrome, it had funny headlights on it and everything. And he bought it and he said to me, I bought this car and I'm sending it to you. He said, if I've done it wrong, then tell me, because it could be a load of rubbish. And when it arrived, when you looked under the skin, all the numbers were perfect. It was a very, very good car. But the funny part was, when a steering column comes out on a 35B, it's not actually like that. It comes out and there's a bit in the bonnet.
Can you? Oh, you need the bonnet,
No,
so you
it's
can't
a
see.
35B.
No, we haven't got.
Similar to that.
Yeah.
Similar to that.
Just show us whereabouts.
On a supercharged car, this comes down to here. So that as a whole here, like that.
There's a cut, yeah, like a cutout.
Just a neat cutout. Well, anyway, so we're discussing it with the owner, this fabulous car. And obviously, once I saw all the numbers and everything, I've got all the pictures out, you know, and pictures that have come from here. And anyway, so I'm talking to him, and I said, it didn't have a nice thing, it had a jaggedy old hole, you know, real...
Chiseled.
Looked like it'd been done by a chisel, exactly.
Yes.
So I said to him, when we restore it, I said, I'll sort that out and make that look proper. Anyway, I'm looking through the pictures, and there's a picture of Louis Chiron standing there like that, and it's got a jaggedy, horrible old hole. Well, obviously we never touched it.
I hope not.
But
Exactly.
what a thing, you know. And of course, everything was a very, very good car.
Yes.
This is made of magnesium. It's very, very light, and it went the other way. It doesn't go the same way as a car engine, and it was made to go in that aeroplane there. And it had two of them. I don't know whether it ever flew. I don't think it ever flew, but I don't know.
Not in period, I don't know.
But these,
Obviously
on the later cars, when they, you know, this is like really towards 1939, they made cars with these in. So obviously they got it running the other way, and they made the 59. I think it was called a 50B or something. But they used that engine more or less, and.
Well, we had the Vermeil car in the building on loan from the Schlumpf Museum.
Really?
And obviously the
same
59
engine.
50B was probably that engine. But look, we've got a post-war engine in the building.
Well, this is a miracle. This is old Bugatti in Paris during the war, thinking about building a racing car.
Yep. And he was planning his big comeback at the end of the war.
Yeah.
You know.
And this is what he designed, which is not particularly good, but nevertheless, if he'd have had enough money and enough people and enough drive, would have turned into something very special.
And Jean Bugatti.
And Jean Bugatti, of course.
Yeah.
That was the big tragedy, really, Jean Bugatti not managing to survive after the war. And this is a very, very early Bugatti. The chassis on this car is completely different to the normal ones. It's got it's just a straight piece of channel. But when you look inside, it's got extension. I don't know whether you'll actually get it, Susie, but see, that's the chassis, and that is the extension that makes it like a Type 35. Now, in a minute, we'll go and have a look at the other car. Because this is pre-production, this is.
Oh,
this is
really,
like
really early.
Very, very, very
Oh, and that's
early.
for the flies.
Yes, yeah. And of course, the car's had a checkered life, so of course it's not, you know, completely original, but it's got all the good bits on it that, you know, go with the very early car. The bonnet's had quite a lot of repairs, but that bit there, with those little bits there, that bit there is definitely original. Which, you know, when you think it's a racing car, for any of that to survive is a miracle, really. Proper carburetors, you know, it's very good. And this little car, with 200 miles an hour, you know, which is amazing. And it stopped nice, you know, what a good old thing. And then, of course, the Bugatti Trust has got this fabulous car around the corner here,
Yeah.
which is completely original.
This is the only car on display that belongs to the Bugatti Trust.
And it's lovely.
And it was donated to the
It's
trust.
donated, yeah, by an American gentleman.
Got all the body, haven't you?
We've got everything, yeah. And he wanted to make sure the car went somewhere where it was going to be
you can,
kept and appreciated and loved.
Never be sold.
Never be sold. Well,
Lovely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, that is
I think it's a real honour when
So
people
are you ever
donate
going to
things
put all the
to us.
body on it? Or?
Yes, well, we're hoping for our volunteers to keep on fiddling with it and getting it
Yeah.
at some point to be
Mind you, it is
perfect
lovely
figure.
like that,
Ideally,
because-
it would be the dream to get it running, because then
Yeah,
we
well,
could
that-
have a running car. And
Yeah.
I immediately volunteered to be
The driver.
driver.
Like, you'd have to have
Not
a
quite
look at
sure
it,
how
but
the
you can't-
insurance
you
would
can't-
like that, but
Can't get that running without looking at it.
no.
You know, when I was going on about the chassis in that car,
Yeah.
because that's a very early car, you
Mm.
know, what that chassis, the difference between that chassis and this chassis is that bit there, like that, absolutely straight, and that bit there is bolted on afterwards.
That's the bit, it's in two parts, isn't
Yes,
it, on the other
so,
car?
so that car in there, being a very early car, prototype I suppose you'd call it, that bit there is bolted on. And then obviously when they made the production car, because that's where the strength was needed, just there. And that is the clever bit of Bugatti design, when it goes down to nothing virtually at the front there.
And then I only learned the proper expression for how this is, it's called wasted, how the chassis tapers at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, well,
And
you
that
see-
was new for the Lyon cars, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
Tapering.
Yeah, and you see that locates the axle beautifully. You know, because obviously when you go around the corner, that's all trying to go like that. And that being at an angle like that locates it beautifully. And then inside there, it slides in there. That is an elongated thing. And then it revolves around those radius rods. So the axle locates it sideways, but it don't locate it that way. They locate it that way. And then the torque is taken up by that arm there. That is fabulous design.
And that then complemented with this, if we turn around and look at
Yes, well, a hollow front axle, of course,
Oh, well, you love these, Ivan.
which is so clever, it's unbelievable. You know, I mean, that is just so clever. And, well, the whole thing is, I mean, it's a genius. I just love it. You know, I can't tell you how often I just
Is this the one you're running away with today?
sat and looked at Type 35s, you know? And thought, just sit there and look at them. Every bit about it. I mean, look at that little, lovely little gearbox. That went from this car to the Type 51, giving 200 horsepower. You know, it's just so clever.
You know, Ivan, you were saying wherever you look you spot something. Can I show you this?
Well, that's a knockout, isn't it?
Type 35 steering wheel.
With
Sir
the-
Malcolm
with-
Campbell badge.
Badge in the middle, yeah.
Online.
Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely beautiful. Everything, everywhere. You know, it's so good.
And in fact, the original sketch for the Type 35 Grand Prix Bugatti was,
A postcard, wasn't it?
it was a little, yeah, it was in a
Yeah.
letter. It was a sketch on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
which Idora sent to Vincent and Elizabeth Eunuch to
Yeah.
say, and this was back in April, saying, I'm thinking about designing this car.
And we'll have one.
And she was like, keep us posted. And then obviously he took 6 to the Lyon race
Yeah.
in August 1924. And she donated this sketch to Hugh Conway Sr.
No, right.
This is why it's in our collection. Look at this.
Wow.
Goodness me.
Oh, I think you captured that very well.
Well, yeah,
It ain't easy.
no, and it's years of messing about
Yeah,
with clay.
yeah, yeah.
You know, understanding how it works and trying
Yeah.
to capture the sense
Yeah,
of the
you see, it's like
speed.
an axle. Obviously, it's bent.
It's not quite true, is it? But
No,
it's-
but you wouldn't be able to get that scene if you had it all straight and everything. The wheels wouldn't be facing in the right direction. That is what's called an artist license.
Exactly. What was the word you used? Impressionistic.
It is an impressionistic piece.
I'm
knocked
absolutely knocked out is the word for it, and the colour. The colour is
And I
coming
like
out
that too.
fab as well. Yes, well, it's one of the.
I like the way it's sort of flying.
Yes,
You know,
yeah.
it's a collaboration between the Bugatti Trust and me, Tim Potts,
Okay.
to create a celebration of the race in 1924. And it's the last ever race where they had a co-driver, or a riding mechanic as they called them. So it's very interesting to try and capture the way they're both squeezed into the car. He's probably doing 70 miles an hour as he's coming into this corner.
Yeah, ropey old road.
Just beginning to drift. So we've got that just beginning to understeer feeling and trying to balance the power, keep it nice and even.
And so this one will go on display here at the Trust as from today. And
But will they have a number stamped on them?
Yes.
Because you know Bugatti people love a number, don't they?
It'll have to be a number between 1 and 9. We can't do
Yes.
chassis numbers and
Well,
numbers.
very often they start off in a 1, don't they? So it's
Yeah.
you know. But I think as it's only going to be 9, that is something. That's a master touch. That is
because
in
and
my
that adds to
opinion.
the energy of the motion
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
it's creating. And
It's dynamite. I really like it immensely. You know, that is. I tell you, it's a knockout. And I mean, all this like the handbrake and you know, the steering in the right angle for the shape of the wheels. But it's a lovely thing, isn't it?
Don't pull his head off.
No, it's a bronze, dear. It's a bronze.
Initially you start with an idea, a conversation, a sketch, and reference material. So these are original photographs provided by the Bugatti Trust, as is this. And this picture was the picture chosen to be the main reference for the sculpture.
And you use the same process Rembrandt Bugatti used for his sculptures, so the lost wax process. I'm going to give it a go in French. Cire perdu.
It's all about trying to capture that sense of speed and excitement, just the sheer verve of what these people were doing.
Yeah, these are plasters. Okay, so these 3 are original plasters, which came from the family home of the Bugattis. And Tim, in a nutshell, how do you get from the clay to the plaster to the bronze?
Well, the issue is that the clay is soft, so we have to translate that into a material that's much more robust. In this instance, it's plaster, and if you want it to be even more robust, then the ideal thing is bronze. I would then take it to a foundry, and what they do is they make a silicon rubber mould, and you can see the inside of the mould here. So they paint silicon rubber onto the clay, and when it cures, it forms a coating, rather like a large rubber glove, over the surface of the sculpture. Now, if that were to be removed, it would be floppy and we'd have no structural integrity. So in order to support the soft rubber where all the detail is captured, they create a fiberglass mould of the mould, and you can just about see that in these images here. So we then have a shell mould. So you take the shell mould off, which is fiberglass,
Yeah.
then you place the rubber back into it. So you now have a shell mould that has structural integrity, but with a super fine detail captured in the rubber on the surface. So if you then want to translate that detail into the next material, the process is to paint wax into it, very like a candle wax, and you create a surface probably 6 mil or so thick. When it's set nice and hard, they remove the fiberglass outer shell, and then they remove the rubber mould very carefully, and as that's removed, you then reveal the new wax copy of the sculpture. So that's a pretty much perfect copy, and at that point I will go into the foundry, check it and make sure that it is a true representation of my work.
Yeah.
You see this process of it being moulded and the wax being made in
Oh,
parts.
okay. Yeah.
So you can see it was constructed with the wheels attached to the ground and the body of the car made as a separate piece. So once we have the wax approved and correct, it's then coated with a ceramic shell. But once that ceramic shell is completely dry, it's then placed in an oven, turned upside down, placed in an oven. And the wax melts and drains away. And that's where the term lost wax comes from. So we now have a ceramic shell with a void inside it that is an exact copy of the original clay sculpture. So it then goes to the casting phase. And at that point, once it's turned back up the other way, you can pour liquid bronze into the empty mould inside the ceramic shell. And it takes probably 20 minutes for the metal to cool enough to be solid, and at that point they throw a bucket of water onto it, and the heat shock explodes the ceramic shell. So once that's exploded, most of the volume of the ceramic shell has been removed, and it's then cleaned up by hand and sandblasted until we get a pure metal copy of the sculpture. And once we have that pure metal copy of the sculpture, it then, if it's made in parts, is assembled. If it's a single piece cast, goes to patination. And the patination process is a process where it's heated and chemicals are applied to it depending on how you want the sculpture to look. So,
And because the best bit of it is this side, in my opinion, because you know, you've got the gear lever, you've got the handbrake, you've got the odd body screws. You hadn't bothered to put all the body screws in because it wouldn't look right. Conjured it up beautifully. And I love the drivers, I love the colour, I love this, I think that's a miracle. It's a knockout, I really like it. I mean, it's just...
As we were talking about Rembrandt, Bugatti and
Yeah.
Lost Wax
Yeah.
and sculptures and all the rest of it, obviously this one,
Who made that?
possibly not Ettore Bugatti's factory,
Yeah.
but as a show and tell,
It's a lovely, lovely thing though, it's pretty good.
we love the fact that Ettore Bugatti always sort of talked about Rembrandt Bugatti as being the real genius in the family.
Yes.
And obviously
Yeah.
when Ettore Bugatti designed his Bugatti Royale to sell to kings and queens of the world and had to pick a mascot for the radiator, chose one of his brother's sculptures.
Absolutely.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's handy when your brother can do things like that, isn't it?
I know, but it's also handy when you've got that mutual respect for each other.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I can understand people actually giving you stuff because it's just, you know, you could come in here and you've got this old bit of stuff that you've had for donkey's years and you think, well, I would like to give this to somebody.
We'll do
'Cause
something with it.
This is
That's
sort
the
of
idea.
more active. Well, it's just occurred to me, Angela,
Yes, I will.
that really my Bugatti engine midget, which has got an 8-cylinder engine cut in half to make it suitable, and I bought the engine from Janet Mitten
Oh, wow.
years
Okay,
and years
yes.
ago, and then I realised it went in the midget, and then I went to America on a Bugatti rally, and I finished up in Las Vegas, and I rang up Caruso's grandson, and they've got a factory producing aerospace stuff, and upstairs they've got a place as big as this, full of all the midgets and trophies
Fantastic,
that they've
fantastic.
won. Anyway, I showed him the pictures of the engine, and he said, oh yeah, it's definitely engine. He said, because look at that oil pump, it is ex-military. He said, and we had loads of that stuff because they had a breaker's yard. And
That's what you want to hear, isn't
so
it?
yeah, so he said, yeah, it's definitely the engine. And then he got out all the pictures of the car, and he said, and he gave them to me, and I said, oh well, it looks like we'll have to go and make the rest of it. So 10 years later, we actually got it all done and had it running and everything. And the family come over to see me, which is very nice, but not the one that I saw in Las Vegas. And
But other relatives.
relatives, yeah.
When they came to your shed.
Yeah, so you know, I mean, it would be quite good, I think, because I mean, it is a bit of Bugatti history, and everybody in America knows about it.
think that'd be quite a
People
nice
used to
exhibit.
ring me up, you know, and I'd be talking about something nothing to do with it, and I'd say, oh, by the way, I've got the Bugatti midget. They all knew about it, so it must have raised a lot in the day, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you are, and because there'll be loads of stuff to go with it, because we've got lots of pictures.
Sounds like an exhibition
Yes,
in the making.
a little bit,
So
yeah.
should I find a bit of space?
Yes,
This is what you're
definitely.
saying.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
sound
it
of
looks
it.
good standing there.
I like the idea of it. Let's do it. Sounds brilliant. And thank you. Thanks
You're
for
very
visiting.
welcome. You're very welcome. I'm knocked out to visit. I can't believe it. But you could spend days in here, couldn't you? Because I mean, I know what them pictures are like in there. You could just open it up and
The 12,000 photos in our archives, you can
Yes.
actually preview them on our website.
really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
It might
that.
be low resolution, but
Mind
hours
you,
of
I
fun.
don't. Mind you, I'll get Susie to show me how to do that because she's very good with the telephone.
And we've got videos on there as well.
Okay, I think it might be time to go home now.
Yeah, but you know, and people.